Hello, I'm Gavin Horgan, Headmaster of Millfield School in Somerset, the largest co-educational boarding school in the UK. Welcome to the Millfield Way Podcast. Here, you'll hear from teachers, coaches and students from Millfield and Millfield Prep School. Millfield is traditionally different, and this is the Millfield Way.
Hello and welcome to this Millfield Way podcast in conversation with Neil Wheeler. My name's Liz Webb, and for this episode I'm delighted to be joined by the Head of Athletics at Millfield, Neil Wheeler. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning, Liz.
So let's dive straight in with some questions if that's okay. Neil, can you tell us about your career and your previous roles you've held before joining Millfield? And is there a standout highlight to your career so far?
Yeah, of course. Career kind of dates back, started post-university, finished studying sports science at UWIC, which is now Cardiff Metropolitan University. First job out of university was a classic kind of graduate role into the fitness industry. But I was very fortunate quite early to get a job working for Welsh Athletics. Started there in 2006 as a development officer. So my job then was working with schools and clubs on development plans and competition strategies and developing athletes in the coaching program. And that kind of evolved over 4 or 5 years. Had held various roles within that organisation, went into kind of coaching and coach development, teacher education. There's a whole gambit around everything to do with development started to kind of come my way, which I really enjoyed. It was so varied, a lot of really good opportunities to get involved in lots of different things in the sport, and a really big kind of learning curve. So that was great, really enjoyed that. Ended up staying there till about 2011. And then went and worked for British Athletics for 2 years, working in their coaching and coach development team, which was an exciting time in the build-up to London Olympics. I was very fortunate to kind of attend a coaching clinic that we ran for kind of 10, 11 days during those games, so attended pretty much every session of that Olympics and was learning alongside some fantastic world-class coaches, which was brilliant. So I was there for 2 years, 2011 to 2013. And then was offered a role back at Welsh Athletics on a part-time basis coaching, which was the first kind of role I had, kind of employed role coaching, because a lot of coaching in athletics is done voluntarily, as a lot of people out there will know. So a lot of my career up to that point, coaching was voluntary, having started in 2005 with a university group. And then, started kind of coaching more formally in a part-time role, which was brilliant. Again, put me in a lot of different situations, working with a whole range of athletes, from kind of working with Scott Simpson and his group with Olympic level athletes like Holly Bradshaw, down to kind of club-based athletes. So there's a real mix, which was great. So I had a couple of years kind of working in that environment, and then went more into kind of full-time again with athlete development programs, coach development programs, and kind of getting back involved in the whole sport aspect as well as coaching. So my role then evolved into becoming the national sprints, hurdles and relays manager for Wales for kind of 4 or 5 years. Loved it. That was a really great role. Worked with a lot of great coaches, a lot of good athletes, and that kind of culminated really career highlights, I suppose. Being team staff at the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games, which is it's for anyone who's been involved in a multi-sport elite environment, is an eye-opener for anyone's first experience. But that was great. Really good opportunity to immerse yourself in an elite sport environment, and be the first kind of point of call for a lot of athletes in what is their biggest moment of their career, which is a responsibility, because it doesn't always go well for athletes, as we know. But a really good learning curve. 6 weeks in Australia sounds glamorous, but it was pretty much every day at the track. I think I had 1 day off in 6 weeks, but looking back, it's you wouldn't have changed anything. It was amazing. And then kind of 2019, as most things happen in sports, certainly that's tied in with Commonwealth cycles and funding cycles, the sport changes, things restructure. And I actually went on and worked for the University of Bristol, part-time, actually doing strength conditioning with them. And then 6 months into that, started working with the Oval Town Football Club as an S&C and sports scientist with the first team and academy. So I was again big age range, working from age 8 right the way through to former Premier League footballers, in a professional sporting environment, which again, the wide range of people you had to deal with, sessions that you were involved in, things changing in kind of last minute, as they tend to do in sport. Again, just love that environment. And then COVID came and changed the landscape of sport for 2 years plus, and we're probably still dealing with it now. Immediately prior to then coming here, I probably had arguably one of the best jobs in the world, and I was looking after my daughter for 18 months when she was born. So that was, again, a complete lifestyle change. And yeah, then this role came available, and loving it.
Excellent. There's a huge wealth of experience there, which I'm sure is going to be fantastic for all our Millfield athletes that are going to come into contact with you. What sports have had an impact in your life from a personal point of view, and how did you get into athletics? Is it something you did as a child? Is it something that you got to a certain level at, or did you play completely different sports? How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, so growing up, right through primary school and secondary school, I was a multi-sporter. Rugby, football, classic seasonal multi-sporter, rugby, football in the winter, athletics and cricket in the summer. Played county standard at rugby, football, cricket and athletics in the end, which, I loved all of them. I love the team environment in a team sport, but then the individual component of competing in athletics, it's all about you, and which is great. It can be good if it goes well, and sometimes it doesn't, but you learn to deal with those sort of things as an athlete growing up. And from the age of kind of, I suppose, 8 onwards, I distinctly remember when I was 9 watching the Barcelona Olympics and watching Linford Christie win gold there. That was a kind of turning point for me, going, I'd love to do more of that. But where we kind of grew up, there wasn't really an athletics club as such. So football was always my first love, and that's kind of where I kind of carried my main sporting career through. Ended up playing county level, played for an academy, Cirencester Academy, which was actually the first football academy that came into existence. It was all YTS scheme up to that point with professional clubs. So we were studying alongside playing football. So we were the only non-professional team in a professional league, which was amazing for a couple of years at college. And then when I finished college and went to university, and went to UWIC, and the facilities there were incredible, I started getting back more into athletics, but quickly realised that I wasn't as fast as I used to be, and everyone else has kind of caught up. So went into coaching very early, probably within my second year of university. So I was only about 19, started coaching my first kind of group, which was weird because you only had people that were maybe 2 years younger than you, and you were coaching them. But it was a great learning environment. So yeah, multi-sport, and still love all sports now.
So in athletics, what was the event that you specialised in? Were you a 100-metre sprinter?
Yeah, I was a sprinter. So I did English schools when I was in school as a junior boy. Made semi-finals, and that was an eye-opening event. The first time, for most students out there listening that haven't done an English schools competition and don't know what it is, and you turn up and you're kind of, oh wow, all right, this is different.
It's pretty serious, isn't it?
It's pretty serious.
Yeah.
It was at Exeter, and they'd put temporary stands in, so the arena was like a bowl, and it was just full of students, and the noise was incredible. And it was one of those moments you're like, oh wow, I'd love to do more of this. But then the next competition you go to is an open meet, and there's one man and his dog watching. So it was a complete difference, but a fantastic environment to kind of learn where you were in your journey as an athlete, and the fact that there were so many other students out there across the country that were as good as you, if not better. So a really good environment. But yeah, 100-metre sprinter primarily, and did kind of long jump and high jump as well, but yeah, mostly sprints. And
I imagine it's hard to be a 100-metre sprinter, is it? Like just trying to keep up with the best around the region, and then nationally. It's a difficult sport, isn't it? When you watch someone like Usain Bolt and what he does.
Yeah, you have. I mean, the best of the best always have a knack of making things look really easy, and Bolt's no exception. I remember watching him in the Berlin World Championships 2009. His 200-metre world record. I was sat on the back straight stand. Most incredible thing I've ever seen in live sport. But he makes it look easy. Whereas when you're kind of learning, starting out and going through the age groups, it's not that easy, and things don't always go well, and you're not always going to compete with a smile on your face, laughing and joking like he does. But you should try. You should definitely try that approach. I think there is a risk for athletes at a young age to take any sport, and particularly track and field, very, very seriously, very young, and that's not always healthy. So I think you've got to enjoy what you're doing, and that's where someone like Bolt really does envisage what that should look like. But yeah, it's just embrace every opportunity they get, and just learn from your mistakes. Like like you said, it's a hard sport. It's you out there competing, and it can be a lonely place when things don't go well. But we talk about here with the students this idea of psychological safety and the fact that failure is fine. Like, you learn from it. That's where your biggest learning curves happen, is when things don't go well, and learning to kind of cope with that is an essential skill in life, let alone in sport.
Excellent. So you joined us at Millfield in September 2022. So you've done one term so far. So it's a little unfair we're putting you on the spot on the podcast straight away. We did give you a term to settle in. So how have you found it? What were your first impressions of the school as a whole and the sport offering here?
I've loved it. It's an incredible environment. It's my first time working in a school, and sometimes here it's easy to forget that you're in a school. There's so much here. The facilities are incredible. That's the first thing that strikes you when you come here. And I was fortunate to do a camp with Zach, an aspiring athlete camp. Alan Richardson, who I've taken over from, asked me to come in and deliver a camp probably a couple of years ago now. And it was the first time I'd been here. I played football here, actually, over on, it must have been up at King Weston, back in the day, but I didn't actually come to the campus here, so I didn't see the school. And the first thing that strikes you is the size. It's a big campus, there's a lot here, it's busy. And obviously when I started, I came in a couple of weeks before term started, it was all very quiet. And then school starts and all the students are here, and it's a hive of activity. It's an incredible environment, it's fast paced, everything happens very quickly. We're very self-contained on site. Everything that you need to get done can get done here, whereas in a governing body background, if you want something to happen, you've maybe got to bring in an outside agency. That takes a couple of weeks to get going, and then you're waiting a month for things to happen. Here, something can happen immediately or the following day. So things definitely kind of move very quickly. But I've loved it. I mean, the staff, everyone I've met here has been so welcoming, helpful. It's just, I feel like I've been here longer than a term, which is a good thing. Yeah. That's a good thing. That's a positive. I think I've settled in really quickly, and I've been very grateful for everyone around me who's helped me do that. Yeah, excellent. And I guess starting in the autumn term, when it's maybe not athletics season, and you can't get on the track as much with the weather, how's that been? Has that given you a chance to kind of build yourself up to the spring, summer seasons? Yeah, I think so. I mean, we have a group that athletics runs here all year round. So even from week one, we had our what we call the specialist groups, basically the students that do athletics all year round. So there's probably a group of about 30 at the moment that are regularly 3 times a week plus S&C sessions training all the way through the year. And the beginning of term, it was actually very warm. The weather was fantastic and things were great. It's only been recently that it's really kind of changed. We are fortunate we can access the pool shelf. So in that incredible facility they have in swimming, there's a space upstairs that we can do some warm up and some quality work before kind of braving the elements outside. But getting into the flow of the week, how the week was structured, I mean, there are a lot of things that were set when I already kind of came here. And the structure of kind of how games activities put together with school and the multi-sport activities that are available. And you understand how busy a student timetable is. But it's been a really good learning curve in that first term, just to kind of get to know the students. Obviously I came in and didn't know anybody, staff, students, nothing. And that's been a really nice embedding period. Got to know the staff well. We've got some fantastic students. I've been blown away actually by their willingness to learn and engage in the process, because I was unsure about how they would be with that. But it's been great. Really enjoyed it. And what would you say your coaching philosophy is? And has that changed over the years as you've had different careers, different experiences? Yeah, I look at a philosophy from a coaching perspective in kind of two ways. You have the coaching process element of it, and then your kind of the technical and physical side of how you construct programs and design sessions. But from a coaching process point of view, I'm very much athlete centered and coach led. So I think they are the center of what we do. It's about them. It's not about me. There's no room for ego in coaching, or there shouldn't be. So if you work from that basis, the decisions become a lot easier because you're making it about someone else and about everything in their best interest and not self-serving. So you kind of start from that kind of that ground level and work up, and then very much I'm a big believer in working on process, like learning skills, learning how things should work, learning technical things, breaking things down, trying to explain things as many different ways as possible so that everybody understands it. And working, like coaching's interactive. I welcome questioning and feedback, and their curiosity, and them wanting to learn and understand what it is they're doing and why they're doing it. So that forms a large part of kind of the philosophy of coaching. And then in terms of when I'm pulling programs together, designing sessions, looking at periodized plans, competition structures, all those things, technical efficiency and development in any event is essential, whether you're endurance runner or a hammer thrower. There's a technical essence to your event that you need to master and understand. Strength development is really important for this age group and any age group really, but skill hungry years, developing strength, coordination, balance, skill, general movement skills, and working with the S&C, the athletic development team here, has been great. We're all singing on the same hymn sheet really, getting athletes to generally move well, skillful. Once you learn those things, you can add other things on top. Speed as a skill. Primarily my events that I coach are sprints, hurdles, relays, horizontal jumps, and a little bit of combined events. So a wide range, but there are crossovers across all these events. A lot of them involve running, at speed. So the better coordinated they are, the faster they are, the better chance they've got of being successful in their event. At the end of the day, most of them boil down to speed. Even endurance runners, Mo Farah wasn't slow. He could drop a 50-point lap towards the end of his races. So, he had a big speed reserve. I think ultimately when you're looking at developing any individual, especially this age, recovery is really important. It's easy to train more. It's a lot harder to make smart decisions and learn when to back off. It's okay to have a day off. It's okay to go easy. It's okay to miss a competition. It's the idea of making sensible decisions continually, daily, is what's going to get you from being good to being great, essentially. A lot of people get that process very wrong and overdo it and commit to everything and run through injuries, and that's just a recipe for disaster. So it always comes for me, build a program around recovery. There are principles in science and physiology that we can't really butt against, and you do at your peril. So there's natural order for training. There's an order to how you should construct your week. And I have, my views on that as a sprints coach, but you could talk to someone, and this is the beauty of sport, you could talk to someone else who does exactly the same thing, and they'd have completely different philosophy and approach. But over the years, working with lots of different environments, lots of different age groups, different events, I think I've come to a golden thread structure that kind of works for everyone, and that's where we're going to try and get to here.
It's interesting hearing you talk about recovery, because I think during COVID there was obviously a lot of concern amongst our student athletes that if they couldn't access facilities where they were at home, and so they weren't training as much, didn't have the programs that they had. But actually, in many sports, having that rest, being forced to rest, actually when they came back better and stronger because they'd had that rest. I think particularly some of our swimmers came back having not trained as much as they would have if we hadn't had COVID. And actually, when they got back into it, they came back much stronger because they'd had that recovery period. Yeah,
I think certainly with younger athletes, there's a risk of overdoing it, and you almost, the body needs recovery to, in terms of training as a stimulus. So you provide a stimulus to the body, then it needs recovery to be able to adapt and get better. And it's in the recovery where the magic happens. And if you are constantly blunting recovery, then you're not going to get to the adaptation that you're after. So there is a risk with overtraining, and more is better. And it's hard to educate people sometimes to think differently, unless you're forced. And COVID forced everyone to kind of stop and reevaluate. And it made you really realise what is important and what can I do when the things I'm used to having, because here, nothing's really a barrier. We've got great facilities, we've got great coaching, you've got time in your timetable allocated to it. Most of them live on site, everything's here, there's no issues, there's not that many barriers. COVID provided one of the biggest barriers that we've ever faced as in the whole of humanity, and that was everything shut down. So yeah, you had to think a little bit differently, and some people coped really well with that and others didn't. But then when things started to open back up, you come from this period of rest. Kids were able to grow, because in 2 years, even in one term, I've seen so many kids here grow probably about 1 inch in height. And, over that period, they would have had more time for their body to catch up and recover. And there were lots of cons to COVID, but there were maybe some things that in the sporting world allowed us to stop and reevaluate a little bit. And I hope a lot of the students that we have here took that time to reflect and maybe look at things a little bit differently.
And what's the programme like for a student who focuses on athletics here on a weekly basis? I know it's going to change throughout the different terms, but can you just maybe give us a kind of rough idea of what their week looks like during autumn, spring and summer? Yeah,
certainly. So the group that's with us all year round will have up to three technical sessions in the week, which is usually Monday, Wednesday and Saturday. We have ours, the structure we currently have is Monday. So if I talk about the kind of sprint group as an example, Monday we tend to have a session on track, and that's after school. And that's usually all of our track sessions start with kind of a ramp warm-up, so raise, activate, mobilise, potentiate, going into skill development activity, acceleration. So that is one of the biggest things for a sprinter to be able to learn is efficient acceleration. So we spend a lot of time covering that, and that's a unit in most of our sessions. And then we'll either go into a running-based session, depending on time of year and what it is we're looking at. Tuesday, then they're in the gym, so learning to lift, learning to train in that environment. Those that are more experienced will be able to lift more. Those that are starting out just learning movements. So that's part of the S&C program on Tuesday. Wednesday, then we're back on a technical session, again starting with acceleration. First term, we started to introduce relay. I'm a big fan of anyone who's a sprinter learning relay. If you're going to get an international vest, it's probably going to be in a relay as your first opportunity. And as a sprinter, you are very fortunate that international teams take relay teams, and that can take 6 to 8 people. So,
and is that not about not dropping the baton?
It's about eliminating the possibility of that happening to as much as possible. Errors in relay come down to fractions. Everything happens so quickly, and people watch it on TV and think, "Oh God, they dropped it again." And you're like, well, everything happens. In that short space of time, you've got two human beings running flat out trying to time something, and it's a beautiful thing to watch when it goes well. Or it's terrible to watch when it doesn't.
It's heartbreaking when
it can be, absolutely. But we by upskilling them in terms of how they're supposed to hold the baton, how they pass the baton, trying it at different speeds, using different hands, trying different legs. It's an event in itself. So we've started with those skills early, and that started taking up part of our warm-up on a Wednesday, which is great because you bring in the whole group and others, so we actually have everybody doing it, into a team environment, and you can do fun things with relays. So we're playing games, which people would have seen on our Instagram, of trying to get the baton from the back to the front as fast as possible, just standing doing it. And that's interesting when you add a layer of competition, how mistakes start to unfold. So that's the start of our Wednesday session, and then that goes into, again, a running session or event technical session. Thursday is a complete day off, so encourage them to have downtime, focus their kind of free periods and everything on study. Friday, then we've been on the grass doing kind of an aerobic tempo session all year round. It's kind of keep that in. Saturday then they're back in the gym, and Sunday, second rest day. Big believer in 2 full rest days. So we try and maintain that as much as we can.
Okay, and so is that how it is throughout the whole year?
Yeah, structure-wise, it stays largely the same. I mean, the beginning of term 1, we flicked around the sessions a little bit. So because we had the light, we were able to go on the grass on a Monday, and then obviously when it starts getting dark, we're on the track. So I moved that to the Friday lunchtime where we have less time. And again, because I'm a big believer of athletes of all ages having a wide range of physical and technical inputs, that although the aerobic nature of sprinting is relatively low, their ability to recover between repetitions, between races, and their general health and fitness is really important. So that really helps with their recovery, and it's a lower intensity session. So that stays in all year round. And the good thing about having that at the beginning of the week, if we're able to, when you roll off a competition on the weekend, the last thing you want to do on a Monday is a high intensity session. So you could do what we call active recovery. So they could go through a warm up and skills and drills. But you can always do that tempo element on grass. It's deloading the body, it's slower speeds, but you can still work on technical efficiency and things like that. So the order, we can, being flexible and adaptable is essential in coaching, and we're constantly reading and talking to every individual as how they're feeling. Do we need to adapt anything for you today? And sometimes I'll have a session plan A, but then it goes down to plan D, and you might have 5 different sessions going on at the same time. But that's really important. One of the worst mistakes you can make is go, that's plan A, that's happening, and everybody goes along with it. That's when the wheels start falling off the wagon a little bit. So being flexible, and that week largely will stay the same, but we will tweak it a little bit next year.
And competition-wise, is there competitions throughout the whole year? I guess indoor during the winters and then moving outdoors? Yeah,
so obviously for the endurance group, there's cross-country that starts pretty much right from the beginning when school starts off. So there with Mr. Allen and Miss Fisher, working on the cross country, and there's a lot of fixtures both before Christmas and now in this term too. And then indoor competitions start to come. We've got one this weekend on Sunday. There was one before Christmas where we had 4 students do that, and they all did really, really well. It was a great start to the indoor season. And then we'll have the Welsh Championships we'll take some over to as well. And that indoors is it's an in out, it's fast paced and done. It's just a couple of months and it's over. So those are the events in Cardiff we can kind of get to, and then there's age group nationals, which some students will do in February, and then if invited, a couple will do the British Senior Championships, which again, when we look at relevant competition to the individual, that sort of level is the next stage, and isn't for everyone at this point. There are 1 or 2 that will qualify and will want to go to that. So indoors is in and out and done, and then we pretty much roll into Easter holidays, and then bang, the summer starts, and competitions come thick and fast, and it's a shorter term here. I haven't seen the whole year unfold yet, but looking at the fixtures we've got coming up, there's quite a few.
Okay, excellent. And you mentioned a couple of people in the training team just then. Who else do you have working alongside you?
So on a daily basis, Zach Harrop works with me. He looks after primarily combined events and jumps. And we also, I didn't mention that we run a multi-sport sessions on Tuesday lunchtime and Thursday after school as well. So that's an opportunity for other students that aren't involved in the athletics all year round to come down and do sessions with us, which is great because speed development particularly applies to most sports here as well. So there's a good opportunity for them to engage with us there. Zach does a fantastic job in that space. He's a great young coach. He's way better than I was when I was his age. He's got a bright future ahead of him. He's doing a great job. There's Charlotte Fisher. She's part-time endurance. Very fortunate to have Charlotte. I've known her for a long time, actually. Not well, but in previous governing body roles, we'd see each other at conferences and competitions. So she used to be the youth development lead for endurance for England Athletics. So our students in the endurance world here are in good hands. Ken Holmes, who covers our throws, fantastic coach, wealth of experience, has coached athletes to Olympic level and does a fantastic job in that space for us. Again, kind of part-time on a sessional basis. Gary Jennings, who very much works alongside myself and Zach through the week, is a teacher here, but was a former teacher in charge of athletics here before Alan Richardson came in. So Gary's fantastic. He's helped me massively settle into the school. His knowledge of the school here is incredible. He's a great coach, went to the Olympics himself, so he's got great experience. So fortunate to have him on board. And we have Chris Coleman, who helps with our horizontal jumps, and Pip Atkinson, who helps with Year 9 Club and some of our multi-sporters, and Richard Gwynn, who helps with the Year 9 Club as well. So we've got a good team, a really good team, and yeah, they've been great helping settle in.
And one thing that always comes up in every podcast episode that I usually mention is that Millfield's really well known for sport nationally and internationally. But first and foremost, we are a school, and so academics is front and centre of everything that we do. How do you work with the academic and pastoral team in terms of managing an athlete's holistic programme and their well-being and making sure they're not overloaded or doing too much? Yeah,
it's excuse me. It's this is a busy environment. The students are good at lots of things, so it's not uncommon to have an athlete who's very good at. I mean, athletics underpins every sport. So if they're good at athletics and they're good at other sports, then we actively encourage them to do that. If someone wants to play another sport, get involved in something else, the answer is yes. How can we make that happen? And then that becomes a conversation with the athlete/student. It may involve communication with house parents, their parents from home. It could involve conversation with a group tutor, who their academic subject leads are, and then fitting our availability and what we have in our scope to be able to deliver sessions with them. Because in lower and upper sixth in athletics, if you are a scholar or if you've kind of hit English School's national entry standard, then there is the option to have kind of PS sessions. So during their private study, they can have an athletic session. So balancing that, is that right for them? Does it fit well in the week? Because I won't just put a session in just because we can. It has to make sense. So does it make sense for them where it goes in the week? Does it contrast with any of our principles that we're working from? And if it does, then we won't put it in. So the structure and order of things is really important. Getting information from people. So we'll notice things. The more I get to know students, you can tell when they come in on sessions, and by talking to them, sometimes just by body language, there's something not quite right today. And that could be anything. But I'd always try and ask the question, try and open up conversation. And then there may be something that we need to follow up with pastorally through house parent or through the welfare team or whatever it might be here. But what's incredible is the support network that they have. I remember I think it was in my second week, I sat in the office and I whiteboarded, I put the student in the middle and then put everybody they could possibly come in contact with in a week around them. And it was big. There's a lot of different interactions that go on for that particular student in a week. When you kind of boil that down and go, well, who do they have most contact with, and who's almost like the gatekeeper that helps them navigate their week and make sense of things, and if they've got problems, who are their go-tos, do they know? And that's important that they do. And I think what's incredible here is the house parent structure that we have. Although there's a lot of students in boarding houses, it seems quite an intimate. They know their students really, really well. So they've been a great resource to kind of talk to and work with. And again, because I haven't been here that long, I don't know them all. But it
does take a while to get to know them all.
Yeah, I'm sure I give it 5 years and I probably still won't know everybody. But when there's been people that I've needed to talk to, as I said right at the very beginning, everyone's very open, they want to help. And again, if we have the best interest of the student at heart, which everybody does, those conversations become very easy and very proactive. So, and if they're having overload academic time, I mean, it's not my first time working with students, so I appreciate, from university and working with school-aged children, that there will come peaks and troughs in the year where education can overwhelm and it become even more important. So classic exams for university students, dissertation hand-in, there are these pinch points, but we know they're coming. So you can plan around it. So we'll plan a down week that week if we know there's a collective stressful period. You don't put your hardest, fastest sessions on the day before or after a major exam. Their head's just not going to be in it. So just try and wind that week down a little bit. Others will cope better. Some will put a lot of pressure on themselves and they're the only ones applying that pressure. So to try and help them alleviate that, help them kind of develop some coping strategies to overcome those things, and their skills that transfer into the sporting environment, skills that's going to transfer into the working environment when they get there and into university. So our whole bit around helping them with their transitions, whether it's from year 9 to year 10 or from year 11 to lower 6 or then on to university, our role is to prepare them for what's next.
Excellent. And you might not have had enough time yet to fully decide what your plans are for Millfield Athletics going forward, but do you have any kind of inklings of what you might want to be doing here?
Yes. When Scott gave me the phone call and I accepted the role and I got home, because I was out walking with Amelia that moment, I got back, the first thing I wrote down was, and this sounds ambitious and it might sound a bit woolly at the moment, but I just wrote down on a piece of paper to be the best youth development program for athletics in the world. And I left it at that for a bit, and I kind of went away and I thought about it through the summer, because obviously it was a while before then I started. And when I spoke to Gary and Zach, I was like, start thinking along these lines. What do we need to do to make that a reality, if it's not already? And that's the ambition, to be the most viable option if you are an athlete anywhere in the world at that age group and you would want to go to school, that we're your first choice. We have great facilities, we have great coaching, we have a fantastic school. Why wouldn't you? So if we can really kind of enhance that offering, communicate what it is that we're doing here, why people should be here, it's not just about performance and results. It's about, I said earlier, the process. If you're interested in track and field and cross country and athletics generally, and you are a school-age student, this is the place for you. That's what the message should be, and they should feel that when they come here. So that would be it. That's the vision. And there are lots of things that can be added and tweaked and changed and enhanced to make that a stronger offering, which some will take more time than others, but that's the ambition.
Sounds very exciting. I'll have to catch up with you in a year's time and see where you're
Definitely,
going.
Yeah.
So we always end every podcast with what are your main 3 takeaways for listeners? You've gone through a lot of information there. So if you had to pinpoint 3 things that you want people to remember, what would they be?
For the students primarily, I would say that any student that is at this school and any potential student that may be at this school, everyone is welcome. Athletics is for everyone. It's a sport within sports. So we talk about multi-sport here, but athletics is multi-sport. So there's something for everyone. Everyone's welcome. Doesn't matter how good you are, whether you're just starting out or whether you're a GB international. The program is the program for you, and you're very welcome to that. Secondly, I'd say, which kind of lines up with the coaching philosophy and how we operate here, is interaction and communication. Coaching is a two-way process. This is a learning environment. We want people to learn, be curious, ask questions. So that would be my kind of second takeaway, is be a student of your sport and ask questions and really want to learn. And we embrace that here, encourage it. And I suppose the third part, and this is hard, but learning the art of making smart decisions. For any athlete in any sport, it's very easy to get swept away with ambition and just keep ploughing on and not listening to your body and not listening to people around you and getting caught up in the moment. But those daily decisions that try and make the hard decision, which sometimes will be, I need to leave it today, or I need to not do this competition, or this isn't the most important thing in the world right now, or it's hard for students this age to see that sometimes, and it's our job to kind of open their eyes to that and see the different way of thinking and learning. Know when to push and when to back off, and sometimes less is more.
Fantastic. Very wise words of advice. If people want to know more about athletics at Millfield, where should they go?
Well, we have social media channels. So we're on Twitter and our Instagram. We try and upload reels and stories and things to that most days, certainly most sessions we have. So there'll be our two kind of go-to social pages. Or contact me via email, contact admissions. They'll be able to get an contact through to me. Whether you're already here or thinking about coming here, more than happy to answer questions, give people phone calls, whatever they need, if they want to come here.
And your email would be wheeler.n@millfieldschool.com.
Yes.
Have I got that right?
That's it, yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you for coming on the podcast today, Neil. It's been really insightful. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Millfield Way Podcast in conversation with Neil Wheeler. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you, Liz.